Hey, buddies, Potato McWhiskey here, and today I'm playing multiplayer with a friend, Ben Samuels. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks for having me on. My name is Ben Samuels, and I am running for Congress in the United States in Missouri, in the St. Louis area. But when I have some free time, this is how I either spend or waste my free time, and always enjoy the chance to watch your videos and happy to be here.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear that someone running for Congress was a big fan of Civ, and I don't think it's time wasted. If you're enjoying yourself, it's always a good time playing video games.
Agreed. No, it's fun. And yeah, I end up playing multiplayer with a bunch of friends of mine, so it ends up working well.
Yeah, that's cool. I remember you were telling me. I think you sent me like a couple of screenshots of one of your cool empires that you built. If I remember or find it, I'll put it like, on screen or something during
Yeah,
the.
sounds good.
So what got you into Civ, Ben? Let's
I've been
start with that.
Yeah, easy question. I started playing Civ back, I think, with Civ 3. So I've gone a couple of generations back with Civ, and it's just such a fun strategy game. And there's just no matter how many hours, no matter how much time you end up playing this game, there's always something new you learn, some new mechanic, some new strategy. I was playing a couple of days ago with a buddy of mine, and we were playing together 2-on-2 versus the computer, and there was a builder that we stole from Coupe, and I didn't have sailing, but Coupe's builders did have sailing, and I didn't even know that if you stole that builder, you took that builder's technology. I mean, there's just stuff like that.
Wait,
that
I didn't even know that. You've like
Oh,
revealed,
really?
yeah, you've revealed like secret technology to me here. That's
I
crazy.
just because I stole the builder and was able to build a fishing boat and then built my own builder and couldn't do that and realized that. But there's stuff. I mean, the amount of mechanics in this game and the nuance of this game is almost infinite in ways that are incredibly fun.
That is true. That is true. There is like the games have near infinite depth, and then like you also take into account that like you have a completely randomized starting location, could be completely
Yeah.
randomized civs. You never know what's going to come up in a game, and you could even like randomize the tech tree if you want things to be really, really different.
Yeah, I've never played with a random tech tree before, but that does sound like a pretty fun way to do it.
It I see. It's almost like it's like someone. It's like driving to work and someone rearranged the roads. It's like I used to know the way to get to the things I want to get to, and now I have no idea how to get around.
The flip side is that when I end up playing a lot of multiplayer games, one of the challenges of having a set tech tree is it's very rare for us to play anything but a pure domination game, and it's just a race to who can build bombers first.
Yeah, yeah,
And so there's a lot of the times where like people haven't figured out like basic sailing, but are just rolling bombers off the tarmac. And uh, there's upsides and downsides to that, so I can see the benefit of a slightly randomized tech tree.
yeah. For sure. At the very least, it means that like your super optimized hyper build order is maybe a little bit less perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's the chaos of the game is part of what makes it fun.
Yeah,
There's no question about that.
especially when like the bombers start rolling and like people start getting angry. It's like you took my city state, bro. That's it. Nuclear war. We're done. Don't talk to me or my son ever again.
Did you play Risk at all, or do you play Risk at all growing up?
Yeah, I played Risk. I used to get super mad when people would team up on me. Like it was just like, ooh,
Yeah, I mean that's like the classic of growing up is like having a Risk board and then flipping the Risk board or something like that. But I played a lot of Risk in Monopoly. Yeah, not Monopoly, also that I played Risk in Diplomacy growing up, and this is sort of like those games, just so much more complex and nuanced in a million different ways.
for sure, definitely. I That's part of like the appeal of them. I think also for me at least, the appeal of a game like Civ is kind of like I don't want to describe it as like a power fantasy, but it's almost like a god fantasy of being like I was in charge from like the Stone Age all the way to the Space Age, and look how cool my society is. Like I made the perfect world.
Well, there's like an enormous amount of pride if you spend enough time in one particular game. There's like pride in how you've laid out your cities, or that you were the first person to settle that new continent, or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. There's always like these moments that you can pick out from a game. But for me, maybe this is different because I play the game for like entertainment and trying to like beat the game. A lot of the things that stick with me are like my mistakes. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have put that district there, or I should have moved that unit differently, or, that's maybe more like a self critical, analytical, trying to improve type of thing.
There's like two different kinds of mistakes. There's the strategic mistakes, which are going to happen no matter what,
Yeah.
and yeah, those stay with you. But there's also just like I clicked in the wrong place,
Oh.
and I just I like why I would love a 5-second undo button here where like that's obviously not what I meant to do, but it's now just totally screwed up my ability to try to invade this city, and I don't even know what to do now.
So true. There's a game called Old World that has an undo button, and it's like every time I play it and come back to Civ, it's so hard because I'm like, I want my undo button back. I want to be able, like, I misclicked the warrior, and now he's gonna die.
Yeah, and you can always go back and like load the game. Not if you're playing multiplayer, but if you're playing by yourself, you can go back and load the prior turn or something. But you still feel like you're cheating like 5% when you do that, even though it's not at all what you meant to do when you misclicked. So yeah, an undo button I would like.
For sure. People are like super. They really don't like it when you like reload your game, especially like if a streamer does it. Whereas I'm like beyond caring now. It's like, listen, that I didn't make that decision. The game made that decision. Okay, so that wasn't me. I'm reloading. Okay.
How long have you been streaming now?
Oh, that's a good question. I've been making videos for October 2016, so we're coming up on 6 years soon. I think
Yeah.
that was when I put out my first Civ video.
Okay. Yeah. So and Civ 6 had already come out by then. It came out in 2016, right?
Yeah, I want to say it was like it came out towards the end of October, and I might have put out my first video around November. So like it was
Okay.
somewhere in that window. I can't remember. I could go back and check and find and stuff like that. Oh man, it's hard for me to like go to my YouTube channel and sort by oldest, and then like look at those first videos, and I'm like, oh my god, I had no charisma, I had no ability, I couldn't even play games while talking. Like I'm talking about nonsense or what's happening in the game, but I'm just doing like completely random, inefficient things.
I mean, that's not that much different than what I'm doing also, right? You start doing it enough, you start talking to people enough, you start understanding what people like and adjusting from there. So that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, what got you into politics, and what was like the first thing that you did? And I was like, oh, politics is actually something I could do.
So I started my career working at a software company and was there, and then we got bought out by MasterCard, and so I worked at MasterCard for a while. But I ended up moving into politics just motivated by all of the craziness and chaos and madness that has been in the world and in particular in US politics for the last 6 years or so now. And it's a pretty motivating thing and also a pretty frightening thing when you feel like the world is moving in the wrong direction. And so I ended up leaving my job in the private sector and went to go work for the mayor of Chicago. I was on the operations team of the mayor's office there. And the thing that's fun about that level of government, but just public service in general, is it's harder. It takes longer to get stuff done. But when you can actually move the needle and finish a project, get stuff done, you really make people's lives better. And that's a cool feeling and a cool experience. And something about that stuck. And so I ended up hanging out for a while in the mayor's office, was there through the end of his term doing infrastructure work and good governance work for him. Went to go work for the governor of Massachusetts after that, doing economic development work and climate change policy work. But even then, never thought I'd run for office. And so I moved back to St. Louis 2 years ago, and my whole family's here, and it was just a chance to be closer to family. And I decided to do this with it's everything that's been happening in the world, where when you start waking up feeling like things are getting worse and not better, and you've got people who are actively subverting democracy, actively subverting science, that's a super frightening and motivating thing. And there's an opportunity here not just to win, bring some decency and goodness back, but to get some bad people out of office. We've got to work hard to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure like there's probably like a million things I could talk to you about, like, misinformation, political franchisement, and, dishonesty in politics and gerrymandering, and like a million different things I could talk to you about. Like that kind of feeds into all of that, like the negative political systems and like the profiteering politicians and like all these sorts of things. But that is really interesting to me that it was sort of a thing that you because oftentimes a lot of people can feel politically alienated, like nothing can get done, nothing is possible. But a lot of the stories around people who go into politics and go on to be successful in politics, it's like they just like some local issue, like they needed a stop sign near a school, or they needed some small like thing, and then they were like, actually, I just like got 100 people together and we like got this thing solved. Like maybe I can do something bigger.
Yeah. I mean, it is as frustrating as it can be to work in government because things are slow and because of all of the challenges with so much political division right now. There's nothing like it if you want to help people and make people's lives better. And it's a cool it's a cool opportunity, and it's also a real privilege to be able to do that and to be able to serve the public. And it sounds sort of lofty, but it really is. I mean, there's just nothing like being able to serve people that way. And uh, the chance to be able to continue to do that and fight for all the things that you're talking about, fight for democracy, fight to end the incredible partisan vitriol that exists in politics in the US and politics globally, is a real opportunity. But your point is right that you do have to be kind of an optimist to move into government, to move into politics in the first place, because you have to think, not only can I win this race, but if I win, I can really do stuff that makes people's lives better. And with everything we're seeing in the world, I think it's harder for a lot of people to be optimistic, and that's a problem.
Yeah, for sure. I know. In terms of the impact you could actually have, you're running for Congress, right, in Missouri's second district?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, sure. I'm not like super bought into like the American political system. I know there's like Congress, the Senate, and then the judiciary, and then there's like the executive branch. I'm not really sure how they all fit together perfectly. But a congressional seat, that's more of like a national level position. Like obviously the local level issues are going to matter. So you've gone for, you've worked on the local level, and now you've kind of gone to a much more state and national level sort of position, right? Because you want to you have that feeling of, I want to do good for people, and I want to do it for like the whole 300 million people in this country. Is that kind of where you're coming from?
Well, there's, I mean, your core constituents, the people you're there to serve, are the people in your district. And so, as you said, it's Missouri's second district, which is the suburban St. Louis area. And their priorities, their issues come first. And so around here, it's a lot of economic development issues and how do we bring jobs and people and opportunity back to a region that's been shrinking or stagnant in terms of population for 50 or 75 years now. How do we invest in health? How do we invest in affordability, which has gotten to be such a big deal?
And not only that, but like technology, renewables, businesses, modernizing infrastructure. There's probably like a million local level issues that can be affected at a congressional and like local level as well. Because I actually don't know what the job of a congressman looks like. They probably do a lot of local level work.
It's a ton of local level work, and you advocate for a lot of the local interests when you go to Washington, right? I mean, it's how policies get written, how resources get allocated, what gets prioritized, where things go. You're the local champion for that, and there's people it's your responsibility to serve all of those people. And so there's obviously stuff on the national level. You know, when you talk about fixing democracy, when you talk about addressing climate change, that stuff matters to everyone in the country. But there's also going to be things where my priority is how do we address this issue that matters a lot to the people in the second district in the St. Louis area.
Yeah, for sure. And what are like some of those issues that you think are like front and center for you coming into this election? Like, are you looking at things like political enfranchisement, gerrymandering, or are you more like bread and butter, sort of like jobs, infrastructure, welfare, or is it kind of like a mixed bag of like a lot of those things for you?
I mean, the things I hear most about, and the things that I think we need to talk about most right now and addressed most immediately, are, as you said, a lot more of the kitchen table bread and butter issues of making sure that transportation is affordable for people, making sure that we're bringing jobs back to the region, investing in public safety, investing in healthcare and healthcare affordability. Those are the things I end up talking about the most, because I think for a lot of people right now, those are the issues that are most top of mind. But that doesn't mean you also don't work on the critical longer term stuff. And if you go on my website, you'll find that democracy reform is a big part of it. And as you said, it's ending partisan gerrymandering. And
sorry, what is your website? I'll put a link in the video when it goes live.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's samuelsforcongress.com.
Okay, brilliant.
So yes, it's for spelled out FOR. So samuelsforcongress.com.
That actually, there was a question I meant to ask you. Like, I know I'm derailing you a little bit here, so just stay with me. But on the sort of Samuel for Congress thing, it's still like early enough for people to get involved, right? If there is somebody in Missouri's 2nd District who wants to like go out and canvass or just work on your campaign, right? Are you guys still looking for people to help with that sort of stuff?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, if people are in the St. Louis area and want to get involved, that is incredibly helpful and incredibly valuable. But there's stuff that people can do from anywhere in the US to help out also. I mean, we need as many volunteers, as many people knocking on doors, canvassing, advocating for us as we can find. So that information is all up on the website. Obviously, if people who are US citizens want to donate, that information is up on the website also. But those are the ways you get your message out there, which is, people knocking on doors, canvassing for you, advocating for you, and then doing things like operating a field program, running digital ads, sending mailers that allow us to talk to people that way too.
For sure. I'm a big fan of like local level program, like people boots on the ground kind of stuff, because that's actually really fun. It's actually kind of really fun if you're the kind of person who doesn't mind occasionally like getting a like small confrontation with someone who's like, get the hell out my lawn, you can have a lot of fun going around with a couple of people you never knew and just like talking to people and asking them what are the voter issues that really matter to them, and then being like, well, Ben, he's like really into this thing and I support him, maybe you'll consider voting for him. And that's actually like a really fun process for the person doing that. And I think it's actually like, it's almost like a fun hobby. Like you only get to do it every couple of years, so I think people should really consider getting out and doing it.
No, I appreciate that. It makes a huge difference, and I definitely agree. I mean, one of the things that's really fun about it, especially now, is for all the demonization that there is of people who don't vote the way that you do, demonization of Democrats by Republicans or the other way around, is, it's one thing to kind of demonize the idea of someone, but when you're actually talking to them person to person, you realize, look, we don't always agree on every policy, we don't always agree on the how, but we all kind of want exactly the same things here. We want more prosperous communities, we want more jobs, we want more affordability, we want more safety. And the way that we close the huge chasm in American politics, and I'm sure this is true everywhere, is just getting people to talk to people. And it sounds simple, but that really is the answer. And I think one of the challenges over the last couple of years, where more people have been at home, there's been less of this traditional canvassing because of COVID and everything else, is
yeah, for sure,
we've lost a little bit of that, and we've got to find a way to get back to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I've heard about a book. It's on my reading list. I think it's called Politics is for Power, or Politics is Power, or something like that. And it's really just about like a guy who managed to essentially gain a lot of political power by just like doing favors for people, like mowing their lawn and being friends with them. And that's how he got elected to like a local level position. And it's that kind of stuff is like, it actually is like a little bit of service, right? You go around, you talk to people. I like you were saying, it's harder to be angry in person. It's kind of like you can't use caps lock when you're like, yeah. when you're just talking, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I mean, people like it's how you break out of the echo chamber, right? And everyone's in their own echo chamber one way or another. But going to a neighborhood that's 15 minutes away from where you live, or 25 minutes away from where you live, and talking to people who you might not work with, you might not go to school with, you might not be neighbors with, you learn a lot about your community that way, and that is a cool and fun opportunity, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of people who disagree with you, maybe we should talk a little bit more about the race, right? Because you're up against, I think it's Ann Wagner. Is that how you say your name?
Yes, correct.
And like there has actually been a little, like, well, I wouldn't say little, actually. It's been a huge political shift. It was like 16 points in favor of Republicans in like 2008. And now it's 1 point or 2 points in favor in like the 2020 election. So there has been a huge shift towards the Democrat side of things. Where do you think that comes from? Do you think that is like the political shift based on, maybe the cities becoming more urbanized, or is it like a real sort of like reaction to the Republican rhetoric and the sort of perceived maybe some of the failures that the Republican Party have had on national level policy? Like, where do you see that coming from?
I mean, it's a district that my neighbors here, everyone I meet out and about in the district does not like extremism, does not like extreme rhetoric, does not like all of the partisanship that's out there. And the Republican Party has come to represent all of that over the last 8 years. As you said, yeah, Romney won the district by 15, and then Trump and Biden tied in the district. And it's a lot of people who see a Republican Party that has gotten to be so partisan and so extreme.
Yeah, I often joke with a couple of my like audience. I say like if you're like an intelligent person with like conservative values, like you have to buy into all of this crazy stuff if you want to like vote for Republicans. Like you can't, and I don't mean to like disparage them, but there is a lot of that like extreme rhetoric that you hear sometimes,
Yeah, I mean, totally. And I think we just need to continue to convey to people that that we're out there to fight for the stuff that Democrats, Republicans, and everyone in between care about. Again, it comes back to making sure that there's good jobs available for people, making sure that transportation's affordable, that food is affordable, that housing, healthcare are affordable. I mean, making it about those sorts of issues. And the way that I genuinely feel, and I think what most people in this district want, is a representative who will fight for them, vote with them, regardless of whether or not that person voted for you, right? I think there's way too many people right now who are elected as Republicans who say, I'm only going to go represent Republicans. And I'm sure there are Democrats who are guilty of that too, but it just doesn't work. And so I think it's a lot of people here who are pretty middle of the road sorts of voters, pretty middle of the road sorts of people. And the Republican Party has gotten to be extreme. And Ann Wagner has really gotten to be extreme. And
didn't she like vote against the investigation into the riot or something like that, right? I don't know if you want to talk about January 6th and all that sort of like craziness there.
Well, I mean, that really is why, in a sense, I ended up running for office. And I remember watching January 6th stuff like a lot of Americans, I suspect, like a lot of the world.
The whole world was watching, man. It was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's horrifying. But I remember watching it. On the one hand, it was horrifying. On the other, I distinctly remember watching it and thinking, as bad as this is, as horrible as this is, things are going to get better because we've seen how bad things could get. And we'll go back to normal, and normal's not good enough, but normal is better than where we are now.
Yeah.
And instead, what we saw was just the total opposite of that, where it somehow became table stakes for Republicans like Ann Wagner to just deny election results and to take people's right to vote away and to actively subvert democracy with her rhetoric.
Yeah.
And when it became clear in the weeks and months after the January 6th attacks that that's the direction we were heading, as I said earlier, I mean, it's just a very frightening and motivating place to be when you start waking up thinking democracy might not survive another election or two, or certain groups of people might not have the same access to the ballot box that they used to. And
for sure,
that's a scary thing. So yeah, she voted against the January 6th commission, but there's bread and butter stuff that is bipartisan in the United States that she's voting against. She voted against an infrastructure bill that a lot of Republicans voted for. And I mean, people around here know we just need money to repair potholes, to fix bridges, to fix roads. I mean, this is not political stuff. And
yeah, this is like setting the table for dinner. We shouldn't fight over it. You know what I mean?
Right. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it's like outside of the US on some of this stuff, but we're at a point now where school board elections have become partisan and the city council elections have become partisan. And why, how your trash gets picked up, how your kids get driven to school, those are things that shouldn't be remotely partisan, and yet here we are. And it's because people are responding to a lot of the extreme rhetoric that they're hearing out there.
Yeah, for sure. So do you feel like America has become a little bit more divided in like, and it's okay to have a little bit of division in society, but in a way that's kind of like actually a little bit toxic?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it has absolutely gotten more toxic and more divisive. I mean, I think all of us in the US, we all know someone who our relationship with them is more strained now because of politics, because they don't vote the way we do. And that's true
Yeah.
for Democrats and Republicans. And that didn't used to be the case. It would, you'd argue, and at Thanksgiving dinner, you would, yell about politics or whatever. But at the end of the day, you knew that we all wanted the same things. And now it feels like there's a lot of Republicans who think that the Democrats want to destroy America. And there's a lot of Democrats who think that Republicans are evil. And
Yeah.
neither of those things is true, but it's gotten super divided. I think the political climate right now that we're living through is part of that, and how much vitriol came out of the Trump era and from Trump himself, candidly, is a big part of that. And social media is certainly a part of that also, where it's just so easy to end up living in your own echo chamber now and not even hearing the perspectives or knowing that there are differing perspectives on certain issues, and you just end up down a rabbit hole, and that's good for no one.
Absolutely. I mean, like, across all political spectrums, I don't think it's good to completely isolate yourself into an echo chamber where your own beliefs are constantly reaffirmed. You see it a lot online, in particular on Twitter. I don't know, like, Twitter's a crazy place for politics. Okay, I think we should undo Twitter. We should just take that one and put it away. But like, people will actually like actively block and hide people and report people who they just like might have like just some very small fundamental disagreement with. And it's like, you're really, it would almost be like refusing to see the color green. It's like you're cutting out a piece of perception of the world that can help you orient yourself and understand. And it's like, that can't be healthy for you.
No, I mean, and anyone ending, when you cut yourself off from big chunks of society, it doesn't matter whether that's political or not. It's probably not a good thing, but it's just in context.
It's actually one of the first signs of a cult. It's when you cut yourself off from bits of society.
Yeah, maybe there's certainly elements of truth to that. No, it's frightening, and to get to your earlier point of why it's important to go out and knock on doors. Right now, the political information that people are getting are from their Facebook feed or from their Twitter feed, and the news sources that are associated with whatever political ideology they have. It's hard to break out of that unless you talk to someone and say, oh, I'm a Republican, he's a Democrat, or I'm a Democrat, he's a Republican. But he seems like a normal-ish sort of guy, and I don't hear about a lot of normal Republicans or normal Democrats on the news that I consume.
For sure. There's a lot of sensationalism as well, like in social media and on, like, you know, the craziest voice gets amplified because people are like, look at this insane, like this one person who's like advocating for probably like the most extreme version of like a Democratic or Republican policy. And they're like, this is what they're trying to do to the country. And it's like, no, that's like one crazy person who got like 10 retweets, you know? It's like, let's talk about like the real, you know, main broad body that has broad support, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. There was an article that I was reading the other day that the two sets of people in politics who tweet the most are the people who are furthest on the right and furthest on the left.
I believe it.
It turns out that the vast majority of people are somewhere between the furthest and the furthest, and their voice is not amplified, heard. They get fewer likes, shares, retweets, whatever. And that's a problem. It makes what is already a divisive time everywhere in the world so much worse, and we've got to try to find a way to close that gap, because we're headed now of people on both sides of the aisle not being willing to work with each other, talk with each other. It just doesn't work. Stuff doesn't get done. People don't get help. That's bad.
No, I think that is the key thing here, is all of this, like the culture war and the battle, it's all a distraction from actually like making America better, right? For you guys, like, you know, you have some politicians like, you know, trying to dunk on each other on Twitter instead of being like, hey, let's talk about like this infrastructure bill, or let's talk about this human rights bill, or let's, you know, and it's like, it's politics has become a little bit like pro wrestling for me in a way, in that it becomes a little bit silly. But that's not, you don't want politics to be silly. You want it to be a little bit like, you want it to be a little bit serious, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, you want people having fun, you want people engaged in the process, but right. I mean, and there are. I mean, I don't want to diminish it. I've worked with a lot of people who are in elected office who really are doing good work. You know, I think about my old boss in Massachusetts, who he's saying the same things in private that he is in public, and he just wants to get stuff done and help people. And those are not the people that you're hearing about anywhere, right? The
No.
people who are just, let's keep our head down, let's focus on our mission, which is helping our residents, helping our constituents. And that, I mean, it just gets no love on social media, it gets no press attention, but it's out there, and we have to fight for it, because it feels like there are more people coming in on the extreme end of things, and that just doesn't it doesn't work for the reason that you're saying, right? I mean, there's all sorts of stuff on my website. I've got a cybersecurity policy page, for instance, and Democrats and Republicans agree that we are not where we need to be infrastructurally when it comes to cybersecurity, especially with everything happening in Russia now.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think
And
any country is anywhere near
yeah,
near there,
and
because it's crazy.
it's a bipartisan issue, but no, we're still not moving the ball forward there, because no one seems to. I mean, too many people are focused on a lot of the wrong issues, whatever the Twitter culture war of the day is or whatever, and that it doesn't work.
I think it's kind of like, to use like a corporate maybe example, it's kind of like the IT department. It's like nothing is on fire, so like no more funding. You know, like we're not
Yeah.
actively burning to the ground, so everything's fine. Whereas actually that's not, because like, you know, some of the sparks of that kind of insecurity when it comes around cybersecurity have been laid. And you talk to anybody who works in that industry and they will tell you the exact same thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's good innovation happening on the private sector side, and there's still just not a lot of progress, or enough progress being made on the governmental side. And I think people are starting to recognize that now, but not enough. And there is a need to push things forward. But I mean, cybersecurity, infrastructure, support for military veterans. I mean, there's a million different things that remain super popular among both Democrats and Republicans, and yet they're not the things we're talking about. It feels like there's not enough getting done because stuff is so much more divided.
Yeah, for sure. So aside from cybersecurity, do you have any like local issues that like you really personally want to champion? I don't know if we've covered that. Like I know, I think I read you have something about. It's actually gone from my head. I'm just going to cut that bit out. No, I'm just kidding. So do you have any like local level issues that are really important to you, aside from like cyber security and stuff like that?
I mean, I think jobs are a big issue everywhere. I think jobs and job growth and job training are more important here than they are in other places, because there hasn't been the growth here that in the St. Louis area that there has been in other parts of the country. I mean, you look back 15 years ago, cities like Denver and Nashville and Austin were the same size or smaller than St. Louis, and all of those cities have exploded in terms of growth, in terms of new industries, new jobs, tech jobs, whatever. And that's not happening enough here. And so as important as jobs are everywhere in the US, I think it's particularly important in the Midwest. It's particularly important in Missouri. It's particularly important in the St. Louis area. So
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
one. Yeah. You know, I talked a little bit about public safety, and that's also an issue everywhere in the US. But I mean,
Oh,
St. Louis has real issues. Go ahead.
what do you mean by public safety? Sorry.
I mean, there's just real issues with crime in the St. Louis area, and violence in the St. Louis area. A lot of people don't feel safe going to certain parts of town, going downtown. A lot of people don't feel safe in their own communities. I mean, if you watch the nightly news on any given night, it's always a shooting or a carjacking, and that's something that people really feel as an issue, and starting to address public safety and making sure more broadly. I mean, people have a right to feel safe in their own community,
For sure.
and too many people here, that's not the case.
Yeah, and that's
And
not good, because
no,
that like it's an institutional challenge in the sense that it takes a lot to actually fix it.
yeah,
But it has institutional rewards, right? The economic growth, the development, the life happiness of actually addressing some of those public safety issues is phenomenal. So like, it should be an issue that like should but probably isn't be an issue that you can get people on board with really easily to fix.
Yeah. Well, and right. I mean, to get to the earlier point, sort of around bipartisanship, Democrats and Republicans all agree here. Violence and making sure that people feel safe in their homes, in their communities, everyone agrees on that. And we've got to start addressing that because it's not happening right now. And so those are two local issues. My background, as I mentioned, is a bit in transportation policy.
For sure.
So I did a lot of work on climate change issues, particularly how do you reduce carbon emissions from the transportation sector. But a lot of that is transportation and transportation affordability. And there's parts of this district which relates to transportation that either don't have well-maintained roads and we just need more support for funding for the transportation infrastructure, or there's a lot of the district where there's still not broadband internet access. And in a world where more jobs are being done remotely, in a world where more seniors are choosing to go see the doctor virtually rather than driving 25 minutes to go see their doctor, not having broadband internet access is a non-starter. And we're not, I mean, it's not that far from the city of St. Louis. It's 30 minutes from the city of St. Louis. You get to places that don't have broadband internet access.
Yeah, I like, to me, maybe this is like me showing my age a bit. That's a bit like hearing, you know, a town 30 minutes from my city not having electricity or fresh water. You know, it's like, this is like a critical core piece of infrastructure that people can change their lives with.
Yeah. And I mean, it's such a clear ROI positive investment to make sure that we're investing in broadband internet access, and it still isn't happening. And so, I mean, again, that's not unique to this part of the country or unique to West St. Louis County or wherever, but it is an issue here that we do need to address, and that'd be another local one.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I'm still kind of reeling from the some places don't have broadband thing you said.
I mean, it's wild. I mean, you know, it's something that 100% of your viewers take for granted, basically, but it's not the case for a lot of people. And these are areas that we consider urban that still don't have broadband internet access.
That's crazy. Because I remember I used to play games with people who were rural in America, and he had like a satellite internet connection, and so when we were loading into a game, we weren't allowed to talk. Because it would disconnect him from the game because his internet was so shoddy, and there was always someone who would forget. And so like that was 15 years ago that I had that, like, you know, oh, they've got like good internet in rural America. It's a little bit shoddy, but to hear an urban area, like you're saying, doesn't, that's wild. That just seems like such a no-brainer. Like, yeah, let's get them internet. Like, do it.
Right. It seems like a no-brainer because it is a no-brainer, and yet here we are.
Yeah, like I feel like that goes back to the whole political issue where it's like we're fighting for the sake of fighting. It's like, these things are obviously good. Like, everyone likes water, everyone likes electricity, everyone likes safe streets. Nobody likes potholes. Can we get all that fixed, and then we could talk about the things that we disagree on?
Yeah, right. It's there's way too many people in politics out there who are just working towards scoring
points,
imaginary
it's about
Twitter points.
Yeah, it's all about points.
Right. In the people who are actually getting stuff done are not out there to try to score imaginary Twitter points. But again, fewer and fewer of those people somehow, and we've got to try to fight to bring. It's like it's bringing some sanity back, or putting an adult in the room, or something. And it just feels like that stuff isn't happening at all.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of loops back again to like me trying to encourage whoever's listening to this, if you are in, around Missouri or St. Louis, go out and do something locally, because you are going to be the political force for change. To shift to another question, I have a list here on the side here that I've been checking occasionally if
Excellent.
I run out of things to talk about. So people are out here for scoring points. So what are the points that you want to score, in the sense that, like, what do you want to achieve? Like, what is if you could walk away, you know, however many years from now, when you retire from politics, and someone were to ask you, like, what was the thing you managed to make happen? Like, did you increase, you know, the economy by a certain amount, or did you just get these really core local issues and set like your home city up for success? Like, I know I'm asking like a big picture question here, but it's kind of like a broad question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. There's two or three different answers I can think of, or different ways I can think to answer that question. There's the really high level answer of, if I can do this and some of the incredible divisiveness in politics, if I can do this and help some people realize that people who don't vote like they do, think like they do, still want the same things, and just bring Americans back together since we're all on the same team, that's a really high level one. I'd say it is the some of the democracy stuff that we're facing around extreme gerrymandering, around
Voter obstruction, things like that.
Right. I mean, those it's just table stakes for democracy, and we have to try to address that, and would love to play some role in that. And then it's, we do a census every 10 years in the US, and coming out of the last census, the St. Louis metro area, if you look at the 50 largest metro areas in the US, was 47th out of 50 in growth rate.
Wow.
And that doesn't work. I mean, if you want to invest in the future of a region, we've got to get more people moving here, people my age moving back here, more jobs coming here, more entrepreneurship here. Investing in that, if I'm successful, it's not like St. Louis is going to go from number 47 to number 1, but there is a ton of work we need to do there, and a lot of low-hanging fruit that just isn't happening at all. And to bring it back to Ann Wagner, who's the current congresswoman, she's been in politics here for 30 years. I'm not really sure anyone can name anything she's actually done to help the region.
That was a fantastic answer to a somewhat lackluster question.
No, it was good. It was a good question. It's an interesting thing to think about, because there are kind of different tiers in how you answer that one.
No, it was a fantastic answer, and like that is an interesting question that voters should ask themselves. Like, it's not even necessarily what has the incumbent, or who, like whether it's Ann Wagner or whatever their local politician is, what have they done for me? It's like, what have they actually done at all?
Yeah.
And for some people, the answer to that, for Ann Wagner, who, as you say, has been there for 30 years, it probably is going to be, well, not really much, except, make things worse in a way that I don't like, in terms of like the discourse, right?
Right. Making the discourse worse. I mean, there's a million different things you can track, stats you can track of, here's what things looked like in 1990, here's what things look like today. And you're hard pressed to find things that are better now than they were when she first got here.
Yeah. You sound like you're like a little bit of like a local patriot, like you're really rooting for your local town. Like you really care.
I mean, we've got to. It's
No, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And I don't want to diminish. There's a lot of really wonderful things about living here, and the city does need a champion and some good PR to say, this is why you should move your business, your family, your whatever to St. Louis, because we've got fantastic schools, we've got great cultural amenities, great restaurants, we've got a phenomenal baseball team, we've got a whole bunch of things that make this a wonderful place to live, to be, to grow up, and yet we're that stuff's not happening. Those champions aren't there right now, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, if I was voting, you'd probably convince me a little bit based on this conversation. But
well, I'm glad to hear it.
I think that is kind of what a city needs. You need someone who thinks like that. I love my city. I really like it. I love the people here. I love the culture here. I love everything about it, because that's the way I feel about my city. I live in Dublin in Ireland, and I love the city. I love the people here. I love the culture. I love the events. I love the sports teams. I like everything about it, and it is a fun and interesting thing to have that kind of pride in your local city, in the sense that, we have really cool amenities, we have really cool sports teams, or there's like this really cool dive bar on 5th Street that like do these amazing shrimps, and it's like, and that's kind of like part of the culture. These things are fun, and I think you need a strong advocate to allow those things to happen, right, you have to get rid of these kind of low-hanging fruit, as you said, things that are preventing from people really having the quality of life to actually enjoy living where they live.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. But with all the challenges there, it's just it is fun. It is really fun to go out and meet people from every walk of life, from every part of the community, and there's just nothing else that gives you that opportunity other than doing something like this or going out and knocking on doors or getting involved that way. One story I've told once or twice is my great grandmother who grew up who lived here, and I think grew up here, but maybe she was born in Europe, but I think she grew up here. Um, was the last of 17 children, and
That's a lot.
it's a good number of children.
That's a lot.
And there's been more than one occasion where I've been talking to someone for 10 or 15 minutes only to realize, oh, you're a cousin of mine through that side of the family, because there's just a million of them floating around the area.
That's hilarious. Yeah, especially you go like 2-3 generations, and that's going to be a lot of people.
Right. That multiplies awfully fast.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's happened to me a couple of times, although on a much smaller scale. I remember I have a similar kind of like story. I think I was walking down a mall in America. I was in Florida on holiday, and I looked at a woman walking past me, and I was like, "Excuse me," and she looked at me, and I was like, "James?" I was like, "Yes, are you my cousin?" It's like we hadn't seen each other in years, and I was like, those moments are great. So I can imagine that you get a lot of joy out of talking to people and figuring out that, oh, we're related. Like, that seems like a really cool idea, or really cool thing.
It's something we share. Totally, it's great.
Yeah, that's always like a fun moment. So out of curiosity, when you are going out there, what is like the political reception that you get? Because you're an interesting and charismatic and kind of fun to talk to kind of guy. So I imagine a lot of the reception you get from people is like really positive. Like people enjoy talking to you. And
yeah, no, I think so. I hope so. I mean, I think a thing that, and this isn't just true of people running for office or in politics, but everyone, but it's the most important thing I can do is listen, where I learn a ton about what people are thinking about, their priorities, how people are thinking about issues, just by talking to them and asking what's on your mind. What do you feel like is working in government? What isn't working? Where can I be helpful? And it's not always the sorts of things that you would expect going in that come up. So I was talking last week, for instance, to a group of seniors and retirees, and there's things that you would expect to come up around affordability and Medicare and the sorts of issues that you'd expect. But a bunch of them brought up the fact that seniors get 10 or 15 different spam calls every day. People trying to steal their information. And of course, I've heard about that from my own grandparents, but it's not something I would think of as a top of mind issue. But it is. I mean, imagine getting 10 or 15 calls every day with someone trying to get your social security number or your credit card information or your bank account information. That is a huge issue. And there's a million different examples like that where I feel like I've just learned what people care about and therefore what we can do to help just by listening to what people have to say.
For sure. And I think people will really appreciate that you listen to them. But that spam call thing, that kind of loops back a little bit, kind of touches on cybersecurity and also data protection. Because like the way they're getting those numbers is by, the internet farming out, our data and all that sort of stuff. And like there's negative externalities. There's a word I'm trying to find here. There's like negative consequences to that sort of stuff. So, that's an issue that I never would have considered, even though, like you said, I actually totally know people. I get spam calls, but I know that like older people get them a lot more. My own mother got caught by a phishing text only, a couple of months ago. Man, right. I don't even know how you would. Go ahead.
It's hard. I mean, no, go for it.
I was going to say, I don't even know how you would begin to address that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is, we could really get into the weeds on this, but
well, if you don't want to, you don't have to.
I mean, there's basically right now a lot of the regulation for cell phone providers is stuck in the 1990s when cell phones were really new, and it was mostly regulation driven by the landlines. And a lot of the times, the cell providers are handcuffed in what they can do to keep spam calls from coming in. So even if a call has a 99.9% chance of being a spam call, a lot of the times there's rules that restrict the cell phone company from blocking that call from going through, period.
Oh, is that like they're not allowed like discriminate between what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the neutral.
Yeah, that's basically it. And so now on at least here, and I would suspect there, but though I don't know, if you get a call, it will at least say likely spam or something like that. But generally speaking, they still have to allow the calls to go through. And there's just little tweaks like that of, we haven't really updated this regulation in 20 years, 25 years. And we probably need to protect seniors as the nature of the scams have gotten a lot more sophisticated.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm genuinely impressed at your ability to go from topic to topic here and like give me like a really coherent and well thought out answer to an extremely niche issue for like graduate society, but that's really important to those individual seniors. So that's I think I've enjoyed seeing you kind of be able to talk to people. Nick, the guy who I was talking to, he said like, "Oh, you'll enjoy talking to him. He's really good at talking," and he was definitely right.
Nick's my campaign manager, who has been great, and yeah, you need a team to do this sort of thing, because there's in the district there's about 750,000 people, and you can only talk to so many of them yourself, and you need people, you need a team, you need volunteers going out and talking to people on your behalf.
Definitely. I'm trying to think of another good question. I got, I could probably just say, is there anything else you want to talk about? And you could probably throw me a few good topics. What about, see, I'm showing my inexperience as an interviewer here, as like, I guess it is a conversation, but like, I don't know much about American politics or how to like navigate it. So I'm kind of like, I'm struggling here, Ben. Throw me a line.
But I mean, that is not my takeaway. In the like talking the stuff that you're talking about around voter enfranchisement and gerrymandering. I mean, those are two huge issues that come up all the time. And I mean, I don't know how familiar people are with gerrymandering as a concept, but it's basically politicians get to draw their own legislative districts. And so if you're a Republican, you'll say, I want this neighborhood, and then 12 miles away, this neighborhood, and then 8 miles from that neighborhood, because that's where all the Republicans live. I don't want a competitive race. I just want to make
a nice safe seat, a nice safe place for me to sit for
exactly
30 years.
The safe seat.
Build up a nice, retirement funds. I get to, never have to actually take any politically dangerous positions. I could just repeat the party line and hold this district until I retire. It's a very, it's like I don't want to say it's like anti-democracy, but it's like the logical conclusion. I don't know. I've heard about the spoil system by, it was like one of the very early American politicians who would like bribe people for votes. It kind of like feels that same way to me. It feels like you're like you're going against the spirit of what a democratic process is supposed to be.
Yeah. No, I mean, right. It should be that voters choose their elected officials and their public servants, and not the other way around. But you end up, and you look anywhere in the United States, you end up with these long snake-like districts that go from one place to another because they just grab every Republican neighborhood that they can get.
I think the most egregious one was in the city of, I think it's Houston, or it's what's the blue city in Texas? Austin?
There's a few. So the big cities in Texas are Dallas, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio.
Yeah, I remember there was like this, it's like a little triangle of the inner city, and then like a snake line where nobody lives, going out to this like rural area, and then it like fans out like to an insane degree to be able to like overpower the inner city area with rural Republican voters. And I was like, this is like anyone looking at this
it's literally like the width of the interstate. Like the district is just like a drive on the interstate and then it picks up a bunch of Republicans. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that was just like the most egregious example. But like oftentimes gerrymandering is a little bit more subtle than that, right? It's you move like one slightly blue town into a slightly red area, or you maybe you just like shift these lines ever so slightly to the south, and suddenly you win both districts.
Yeah, right. And there's so many things about it that are frustrating, but in particular, and we only do this once every 10 years, and we're going through that process right now. Politicians, and Democrats are about as guilty of this as Republicans are so brazen about it, which is there's not even lip service to we're going to try to do what's best for the voters. It's purely I want to create as many Republican seats as I possibly can, and we're going to carve up this map in whatever way we want to do it to achieve that goal.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. It's kind of crazy for me to hear people be brazen about that, but I think it's a problem of education, and it's a problem of awareness, and it's also a problem of local level like voters personally holding those politicians accountable for that, but also like the system itself not holding them account if you get what I'm saying there.
Yeah.
And so like I think we need like you might disagree with me here, but I think you need like a mixture of education and then ideally some sort of at least attempting to be what's the word I'm looking for here? Non-partisan or bipartisan or objective sort of place that like there's no, like you said, elected officials shouldn't pick their voters. It should be done through a process that's transparent and everyone understands. Yeah.
No, that's 100% right. And it shouldn't be that hard to get there, but here we are right now. I mean, that element of it is disheartening how brazen and callous people have been in again, not even giving lip service to the notion that we should do something to help voters, that it's purely to help my friend, my political party, my cousin, whatever.
Yeah. I think I feel like that's kind of a scary moment for me in politics, is when we're not even pretending we're doing the right thing. And we've just kind of been like, yeah, no, we're actively participating and doing things that we are totally not in favor of the voter or whatever. I think that's kind of like that's a weird moment to be. It's like you're a representative of these people and you're actively not representing them. Like,
right. We've lost the servant and public servant.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe even the public part, depending on like
possibly the public part.
That's a private servant. Yeah, I remember I saw actually a really good video on this. If anyone's interested in like getting like a little bit more of an overview, there's a great video by CCPG Gray or whatever it's called, where he goes over like the concept of like gerrymandering and like different voting systems. It's a really, really cool video. I might link to it as well in the description. Have you actually done any work on like gerrymandering or anything like that?
No, not directly. I volunteered in the last election in Missouri. There was a ballot measure to focus on ending gerrymandering in the state legislative districts. So we've got a state legislature and then a federal legislature. So that would have touched the state legislature. And I volunteered for that and did some phone banking and text banking and a whole bunch of other things. And that they lost very narrowly, but they lost. And so that's been my most direct involvement on that, is volunteering for the No on 3 campaign in 2020 in Missouri.
I feel like a narrow loss is way more painful than a crushing defeat, because you're just like, man, if we had a few more people, if we just had a few.
Yeah. Well, there's some corollary to I think this is true, although maybe it's one of those urban myths, but apparently people are much happier winning a bronze medal than a silver medal, because you win a bronze medal, you're just happy to have a medal. You win a silver medal, you realize how close you were to winning the gold.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm the kind of person who I'm just happy to get a medal, because I usually don't get them.
Yeah, right. I don't see the Olympics in my future at any point. So
if I was getting a bronze medal at the Olympics, something has fundamentally gone wrong at the Olympics. Right. But also on that same token, like a narrow victory must feel like one of the greatest things ever, because that's the thing a lot of people maybe don't realize. they say, oh, politics shouldn't be emotional. We should get emotions out of politics. But politics is emotional, right? When you get a victory, when you get a loss, when you get a defeat, there are those feelings of maybe even a little bit of competitiveness when you're participating in a political campaign. Do you have any like memorable moments where you like had a victory on something or a loss or?
You know, when I was doing climate policy work for the governor of Massachusetts, and I was there, there were we were working with a pretty big group of states. It was a group of states from Maine to North Carolina, and there were a lot of small wins and small losses every day on that, where we convinced this legislator or this other advisor to the governor couldn't be convinced. But the thing that was really interesting about that is you got to see a lot of the good and bad in politics, where there really are still a lot of people out there who are, as I said earlier, people who are saying the same thing in private that they are in public. Of, I just want to help people, and this is a way to help people. We'll figure out how to do it, but it's an important thing to do. And then there's also the bad of people who say, I know this is a good idea, but it's just hard or politically challenging, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah, and for sure.
That's a disheartening thing, and it's a loss, but it's not like there's anything exactly you could have done about it. They've just made a political calculus and a moral calculus, and I would have come out on the other end of that. But
I don't think
you live to fight another day.
I don't think you can like begrudge people for making that calculus, because they're probably still coming from that same place of like, I want to do the best I can.
Yeah, right.
But I got to compromise something.
Exactly. Right. I mean, that's 100% right.
Yeah, I think compromise, though, generally is a broadly good thing. Now, sometimes, like, that doesn't mean every compromise is good, but I think there is, like, a little bit of a sense of an uncompromising attitude from certain parts of American politics. Like, you know, we're never voting on this thing purely because it's an other party bill, or we're never voting on this because this person proposed it. And I think the more willing you are to compromise, I feel, the like happier the nation is. That's just something I feel.
Yeah, compromise is not a bad thing, and I think to get way back in the conversation around the loud voices on Twitter or people at the political extremes, they're the ones making a lot of noise that you shouldn't be compromising. But you know, I obviously want to get done 100% of what I want to get done, but I would rather get 40% of it done than none of it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've lost that attitude, I think.
100%. Like even an example of something like minimum wage, where like maybe the minimum wage is like $10 and you want to take it to 15, but they're saying we'll go to 12. It feels like an obvious to be like, okay, we'll go to 12. You know what I mean? Like, but there's some people who would be like, nope, 15 or nothing. And it's like you're robbing everyone on minimum wage, $2 an hour.
Yeah, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Absolutely. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
You know, there's all these sort of things, and I spend a lot of time on Twitter because, you know, it's part of my job and stuff like that. But I see a lot of that kind of attitude where people are just like, we need to get everything we want, or we're not going to play. And I think that just doesn't fly in politics, really, like at all, at any level.
No, you're not serving your constituents that way at all. Yeah, it's a corrosive attitude to have.
For sure, absolutely. I mean, for me, my natural instinct is always to look to compromise, is always to be like, I want A, you want B, let's do A point B. You know what I mean? Like something in the middle, or I'll do A today and you do B tomorrow, or, you know, that's just who I am. And it's like really baffling to me when I encounter people who just will not compromise even like an inch. And it's hard for me to understand that. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. I don't get it either, but it's where we are, and I think it's a symptom of the time and why we have to try to do better.
Yeah, for sure. And man, sometimes I feel like when I listen to American politics, I feel like we have to do better, but really sometimes what we're actually saying is like there's like a very small subset of people who have to do better because they're dictating things.
Yes, right. I mean, if there's a few people we could maybe coach out of politics, the world would be a better place. There's no question about that.
Well, you seem to be doing your part to at least make some of that come true, right? You're running against a incumbent Republican who's been there for a very long time, and you're going to hopefully do a lot of good there. I don't really know a lot about how Congress works. So is there like, because here we have like things like party whips, where you're told like, okay, we're voting on this together as a block. Is like, do you have any insights into like actually how the nuts and bolts of Congress works? Like what's the day-to-day life of a congressperson?
Yeah, it's there's a lot there around just constituent services of people saying, I'm having this issue with the federal government, I'm having this issue collecting a social security payment with Medicare, Medicaid, and can your office help me? And so there's a lot of just boots on the ground helping your constituents because your constituents need help. And then it's a lot, for all of the high profile hearings and high profile legislation, to bring back cybersecurity as an example, there's a lot of, all right, let's sit down with the policy experts on this in a couple of different congressional offices, and you'll get the member from Montana and the member from Michigan and Mississippi and other states that don't start with the letter M. And you'll figure out where can we get stuff done and start to draft legislation and work with leadership. I mean, it is just sort of moving things forward one step at a time on that sort of legislation. So those are the two ends of it, is helping constituents really on the ground and then working through some of this legislation.
I know I'm asking you that hypothetically a little bit because you haven't actually been a congressperson, but I was curious, like, did you have any insider knowledge about it? Because just pure curiosity, because I have no idea how the American political system works. Like, I know the president makes speeches sometimes, and like, that's it. That's basically everything I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's it like? Have you met any of the people like in sort of like at a, obviously you've met the governor and stuff like that, but the people in politics, they're like really interesting people, right? Because they're usually like incredibly passionate and they really, really care about like the political process and how things work and the nuts and bolts and like trying to get things done. What's it like being around all these incredibly passionate people?
Yeah, I mean, you get to learn about what people's priorities are. You get to, I mean, in talking to a lot of these people, you get to see, if you're talking to state legislators in Missouri, you get to see different parts of the state. If you're talking to people federally, what are priorities for people in different parts of the country, that sort of thing. And no, I mean, that element of it is fun also to get to the point of just seeing different people from different walks of life. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's really cool. Because I think that would be like, I'm really interested in people a lot of the time. So I would love to be a fly in the wall on a lot of those sort of conversations that are having, or even just like, there's probably like after work things that people go to, or all these various things. And that would be like the thing that would excite me, is to like, oh man, like to hang out with like this person who's like super passionate about, electric cars or renewable energy, and watch them like work on all these different campaigns to try to make, a wind farm happen or something.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's fun to see. I mean, people are passionate about stuff, and it's fun to talk to people who are passionate about anything.
Yeah, for sure. It's like it's the most interesting way to have a conversation with someone, is like, but it's hard to get people to talk about their passion sometimes, because there are people out there who will just like, the second you start talking to them, like if they care about, collecting cute little fluffy teddy bears, you'll know in 5 seconds. But there are other people you have to kind of coax it out of them. But once you do, it's like you're talking to a different person.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're getting into Civ now. We kind of got distracted with the conversation for a very long time now, and we've actually started moving. I see you've settled your city. But do you play any other...
I don't know how you being the like expert on this game got a start location that is like so much better than my start location here.
Well, look, so I have somebody on the inside at Firaxis who's helping me out. That's all I can say, okay?
Yeah.
I'll say no more. So speaking of like, just kind of like Coming back to video games, are there any other games that you like to play aside from Civ and stuff like that?
Not really recently. This is the only game. I hadn't played in a while, and then during the pandemic, when there wasn't a ton that you could be doing out and about, I started playing a lot more with friends. It's it's just such a fun multiplayer game, and like I don't love all of the mechanics of the way that multiplayer Civ is set up, but
No.
It's a great way to stay in touch with people, and that was particularly true during the pandemic where you just couldn't be seeing people really.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people kind of rediscovered their love for like video games that they played growing up, or games they really liked, is just because like you'd be sitting at home in the evening and like you can't go out for food, you can't go see people. You gotta figure out what you're gonna do with your time. And video games have been sitting there waiting for you that whole time.
Yeah. I'm thinking about where I'm putting my second city now, and this is kind of an interesting Australia spot if you want to look at where my scout is up here. It's like right by the Delicate Arch, and it's a desert, which is not the non-starter for Australia that it would be for other civilizations, but it's also just kind of far from my first city here.
No, for sure. Although I would maybe settle like a city in between there and then go for that. Although if you go straight for it, you could do like a sneaky Petra and make like a really, really cool desert city, especially because Australia has those outback stations.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little far. I'm going to run up against loyalty issues there also.
Oh yeah, there is a little bit. You could maybe
there must be someone down there.
Yeah, I think it might be America. I left it on random, so like America was just like they just happened to show up. It was like serendipity or whatever. But yeah, so you really like playing Australia, right? That's like your favorite Civ, or the one that you're comfortable on?
Australia is the one I've gotten to be most comfortable with. I like there's a few things I like. They get a huge production bonus after someone declares war on you, and given the way that all of my friends play when I play against them, it's just a series of nonstop surprise wars, and that really comes in handy. The culture bomb that they have with pastures is fine, not great, but the adjacency bonuses they get for breathtaking terrain is pretty powerful, and that is probably more than anything else why I end up playing with them.
No, for sure. Like they are, Australia is one of my favorite civs, but I almost feel like I'm driving around like a car that's too fast. If you know what I mean? Like they're too good sometimes in the hands of a player who really knows how to like get the most out of them.
I can see that.
But they are like but I think those are the kind of civs that are also the most fun, is like the ones that like kind of break the game a little bit, because like you declare war on me and then all of a sudden I can make units like every turn.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go for it and try to get that Petra down there.
I think
it's just a little far, but like it would be such a good Petra if I could pull that off.
The big problem you have is that loyalty. If you could maybe, if the desert extends to like the river, you could probably settle like here. Can I put a pin down?
Yeah.
Am
I gonna be able to see it?
Yeah, it would like be somewhere like near this, maybe like on the edge of the desert, because that's like out of loyalty a little bit. That would be kind of cool. That's kind of where I would think about it. But that's like a Hail Mary city for me. I'm so used to playing on deity where I would never get like a unit over there before it would get murdered.
Yeah.
But that's like a way braver city than I would ever consider. But maybe it'll work.
Yeah, it's just like it's so enticing as Australia to pull that city. So I just got my settler. I'll see what it looks like down there.
Well, here's the thing: you've got a teammate to like carry you if you get into trouble. So I'm here to help you,
and a particularly talented teammate at that.
Thank you very much. I like to think I know how to play this game a little. Oh, look, you're back! Brilliant.
All right, I'm rejoining. Hopefully,
if nothing else, I want you to win this election so I could be like, I played Civ with a congressman. That would be a fun claim to fame, eh?
It is. I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of free time in this process, and so this one is like I said, it's a good way to stay in touch with people. It's a good way to it's like a super strategic game.
For sure. And I think the interesting thing about Civ is kind of like Risk, it's a social game when you're playing it with friends, right? Because there's
Yeah.
a lot of like negotiation, there's a lot of like don't attack me or we're not friends anymore, but not exactly. Like that's probably a little bit more juvenile. And I think I've always been a big fan of like social games. Like I don't know, have you ever played like something like Werewolf or
No, I don't
Mafia?
think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've played Mafia before.
Yeah, well, Werewolf and Mafia are kind of like basically the same concept. But I really
Okay.
like games like that. And I get that same sense when I play multiplayer a little bit, like with people. Because someone's like, hey, do you want to be friends? And I'm like, sure, let's be friends. And then like the other person on the other side of me are like, we're mortal enemies. I'm going to kill you. So I've got friends on one side and enemies on the other. And I really enjoy that part of Civ.
Yeah. The multiplayer mechanic that we end up talking about a lot is like, particularly when you're at war, the speed with which you click determines what happens,
Yep.
which is otherwise there's just like not a relevant skill to have in this game. But I don't really know how you fix that exactly.
Yeah, for sure. There is a sort of element like, and it also depends because sometimes like blowing all your moves early in a turn can actually like backfire on you too, because like now you have no way to respond. Like if he upgrades into a knight or something, and suddenly his city has more combat strength, and you've used all your movement, you've no way to deal with that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like, I think I don't know if you've seen, you probably haven't, but because you're obviously you're like super. Oh my god, I'm gonna get murdered by horses. By the way,
Do you need me to, I don't know how quickly I can come down to rescue you. Where are you?
I'm like to your southeast, but I'm making
Yeah,
warriors.
I don't see the horses down there.
They're in the fog of war. I ran away when I saw them, so I'm just hoping they
Got
go
it.
to someone else.
Okay.
They're coming though. You just wait. I gotta bring my warrior home. Oh god, what was I saying? It was something about multiplayer. This is the danger of playing. Now we're having the reverse problem, right? The game has become interesting, and now
Yeah.
the conversation is difficult.
Well, right. I mean, like the one more turn thing is really true in this game, where you can just accidentally end up playing for 20 hours.
Oh, I mean, you're speaking to the poster child for that. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I have like thousands and thousands of hours in this game, and I would probably have more if I didn't like self-regulate away from the game. It's super super fun, and I think that is like the unifying thing though, like that everyone talks about is like you sit down to play like an hour of Civ, and suddenly it's 4 a.m.
Yeah, right. Which is part of what makes it fun. All right, so I think I'm going to settle my city down there, but so you have me on the west of the Delicate Arch, but if I go east, then I get the fresh water from the oasis.
Oh, I was just saying like in that general area might be okay.
Okay.
So like but like the loyalty has just become really hard for you here.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to go.
Hmm.
Like if I go to that tile that's north and west of the oasis, then I can probably like I'll be able to hold it because I'll be able to get a governor in a couple of turns.
Yeah, if you get a governor in there, you'll be fine.
But if I go right next to like those -20s, I'm not gonna hold.
No, there's not a chance you're holding a -20. But the -9, I think the -9 tile or the -8, although you don't want to be on that fresh water, that's the thing.
Yeah, I can go.
The
I mean,
problem
maybe, yeah.
the problem with the -9 tile is you have like an oasis tile and a hill and then nothing else to work.
Yeah, I think I need to go over and deal with the fact that I don't have fresh water later.
Hmm. That's a tough one. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
maybe I was greedy going for all that faith.
hey, listen, we are team greed, okay? I am 100% a greedy player, okay? This is why I'm about to get invaded by horsemen, and I'm totally not prepared for it. I think greed is good in these kind of games. Nothing else they make the game more interesting to play. It's like, aha, I was about to achieve this really important thing, and all of a sudden my empire has 12 horsemen in it. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I should be giving you advice here. Where my instinct would be to go to the river, but that doesn't really work. The problem is you have that city state there that's like really in your way. Like if that city state wasn't there, you could settle like on the edge of the desert and get a really good city. I would actually consider the -9 tile. Here, let me see. I'll put pins down so you can see where I'm talking about. I would consider like here, or I would consider maybe one of these tiles, like that one there. you still kind of get the delicate arch, maybe just the edge of it. But that one has like silver, it has the sheep, and it has an oasis, and it's out of the loyalty problems. I think both of those are valid choices.
Yeah, maybe I'll go back up and do the one that's north. That feels like the smarter move rather than having to just deal with the loyalty issue for a long period of time.
Yeah, that sounds like the safe move. I gave you a dangerous and a safe option, and you've actually disappointed me with your lack of greed.
Also, yeah, you said something on one of your videos the other day about not needing to build a granary, and I feel like I always end up doing that early in the game. Like if I don't have a need to build anything else, I just like default to building a granary once I've built a monument.
Well, that's exactly what you should do. Is like if you don't have anything you need to build, a granary is an okay choice, because the way the math works out, it like essentially gives you somewhere between like a 50 or 25 to 50% growth boost, and it gives you extra housing. I think the big thing for the granary is the housing. Like when you need excuse me, when you need houses, that's the time for you to go for the granary.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a fun question. When did you start watching me around the pandemic when you started getting back into the game, or did you just find a tutorial or something?
It was, I think, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I suspect I found a tutorial where, I'd played this game a couple of years ago, but I probably should figure out what I'm actually doing here. All right, I get to choose a pantheon here.
Oh, you've already got a pantheon. I'm impressed. I don't have one.
Can I get the free settler? I don't think so. Is there a good pantheon for a desert?
Well, looking at your situation, there's a few I would consider. You have those pastures to your west, so the god of craftsmen, the one that gives you production and faith on strategic resources, could be okay. Or you could go from faith from your quarries, because you have 2 quarry resources you have 3 quarries in your city actually.
Yeah, I don't think god of. Yeah, maybe I'll do god of craftsman. That's a good one.
It is. Production is always really nice.
Yeah. All right, I went with that.
Yeah, so you'll maybe. Do you have the goal to buy that horse tile, and do you have pasture unlocked?
I do. How much gold do I have?
I would buy the horse tile and then like improve it. That way you're getting that god of craftsman bonus.
Yeah, good call. That's a good call.
Now
I don't have a ton of I don't have a ton of natural beauty around me right now, which is always a bit of a challenge. It's Australia.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably like a marsh. You kind of rolled low, to be honest with you, because like you should have my start would be much better for Australia, maybe. Although coastally they do tend to do well.
Yeah.
I was going to say I can upgrade that now to I've coached a congressman.
That's why I'm here. It's for the tutoring.
Yeah, for sure. This is actually all a ruse just to get tips for Civ 6 so you can win your multiplayer games. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that would be an awfully long con.
It is funny because I think Civ is a very it's actually a very like universal game. Like a lot of people like from all walks, and this might just be that gaming in general is universal, but like people from all walks of life play this game, and usually they are people who have like a really, really, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say intellectual because that makes me sound like I'm tipping my fedora. I'm trying to say they have like a very technical engagement with the world. Like they're like a lot of people who like want to solve problems and like move numbers and do things. And I've just, that's like a trend I've noticed for people who like to play these games is they're all problem solving kind of people.
It's a super analytical game, like a crazy analytical game.
Yeah, to the point where you can actually be paralyzed with the amount of choices you have to make.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, but I think, what was the first Civ game you actually played? Do you remember?
It was Civ 3 was the first one I played.
Oh, you played way back in the day, like when mountains, you could settle on mountains and stuff.
It's so long ago that I don't remember a ton about how, like if I picked up Civ 3 again today, I think I would struggle with it.
I think that's partially just because the game actually was a struggle, like just in general.
Yeah, could be.
And less so to do with your familiarity with it. It's a great game, and I think it's kind of interesting because I don't know if you I haven't read all of Sid Meier's biography or like all of his interviews, but he did leave one interesting point that I thought was kind of interesting, is that Civ is a little bit of like a cultural phenomenon. Like you couldn't have a game like Civ come out today because the way games are made now, there are things like Fortnite and, you know, all these sorts of mass market things, where Civ is kind of like a weird anomaly in that way.
Yeah, there was some interview of his that I listened to about why the game is as addicting as it is. And he made an observation that I never thought about, but of course it's right, which is there's just a nonstop series of short, medium, and long-term things that you are working towards. And so there's never a point where you're just discreetly done with the things that you want to accomplish.
Yes, for sure. Definitely. I 100% agree. It's like and in a way, it kind of maybe mirrors politics. Like the work is never done, right? You're always trying to like muscle through these like little weird little problems that come up, which is actually kind of true for really any job where that has a sense of responsibility. Is you're constantly either finding problems and fixing them or being presented with problems and fixing them. And I think Civ is that, but like in a really low pressure environment, because it doesn't matter if you mess up. You could just delete the save file and never tell anyone.
Right. So I have the thing that I would change in Civ 7 is something about one of the things I would change is something about the multiplayer mechanics. And I think you put out a video about this recently, but like, yeah, what's the stuff you're looking to change? And oh my God, there's a lot of barbarians up here in Civ 7.
I was watching your scout move. Well, thankfully you're not on the coast, so you don't have to deal with those guys.
Yeah, no, this is intense up here.
I've got my own problems down here, but I finally cleared the barb camp. So for Civ 7, in terms of wishlist, I'm going to give you like a slightly boring answer in that I kind of trust the developers to make good decisions when it comes to the game. There are a few things I would like to see, like very broad stroke stuff. Like I'd like to see some immigration in the game, you know, because I think that would be an interesting mechanic, right? You know, like let's say I have a city really close to like the Greek player, and one of his like Greek citizens are like, you know, screw the Greek Empire, I'm moving over to Persia, and they're like, Persia is actually a really great place to live. You know, you could have population actually like move around the map would be kind of an interesting one for me.
Yeah. What's your favorite and least favorite victory conditions to play for?
Ooh, God, for least favorite, it's got to be a tie between diplomatic and religion. I just really don't love doing either of those.
I find playing for a religious victory in this game, it's just tedious.
It's so tedious. And it's the same kind of tedious that a domination victory is, but without any of the cool rewards of like actually having like cool units with unique mechanics. Because it's like once you unlock missionaries and apostles, that's everything.
Yeah.
Nothing changes, and it's just a grind and it's a slog. So 100%. Having said that, I'll go back to my my question there, and I think the change I would ask is to make some changes to the religion victory, please.
Yeah, I think I would be with you there too. That, like, I feel like, and this is probably true for most people who play, it's just like you sort of end up defaulting to domination at a certain point. Like you have grand intentions of going for a culture victory or going for a scientific victory, and at a certain point it's like, well, I could just conquer every capital here.
Yeah, it's kind of like you check your watch and it's like, this is taking too long, let's break out the tanks. Yeah, thankfully real world politics doesn't work like that, like international diplomacy. People are a little bit more reasonable than that. It's like, it's lunchtime, let's invade my neighbor. But I find I'm a very pacifist player when I play this game. I try to avoid war. I'm incorporating more war into my gameplay nowadays. But for me, I really like the economic puzzle of these games. Like, okay, I put my mine here and that's adjacent to my industrial zone, so I'm getting +1 on that industrial zone, and all these sort of things are like, I put all my trade routes in this city and I can do this project in one turn. These kind of like economic puzzles, or like building interesting configurations of districts, these are the things that really, really drive me.
Yeah.
I like just sending a tank at someone and being like, lol, thanks for the city, bro.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a cop out, but it's also just the easiest way to win. Like even going for a science victory, it can be really fun, but there's tedium as you get to the end of the game in actually
100%.
achieving it.
100% I agree. Everything up until you put your spaceport down is interesting.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
I don't think anyone would fight me on that one. So out of curiosity, what's your like? I know you default to domination, but is there like a victory condition that you like that you really enjoy? Like, do you like culture or?
I would say, yeah, I don't even enjoy domination the most. It's just the one I end up going for the most. So when I play with friends, um, like the most important thing to do is a roundabout way of answering your question. The most important thing to do is just get up walls immediately, because otherwise there's 30 warriors coming your way and you're not going to survive.
Those sound very, very aggressive players. But like,
Well, yeah. But I'd say I probably enjoy the culture victory the most of all the victory conditions, where it feels like you have to play the most well-rounded game to pull it off.
yeah, for sure. It's because like every yield matters in a culture victory up to a point. Obviously, there's a certain point where you just like I don't care what science I research. I got to get all my tourism up. But yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like the tourism victory, the culture victory, that's the one that I think got the most love from the developers in terms of like new mechanics and new interesting stuff. Like we have national parks, which are, by the way, national parks is probably the most requested explanation. Like, cause nobody knows how they work.
Yeah, well, I don't fully. Yeah, I mean, and this is, I know, a constant complaint that people have of why can't you just build a national park in any four tile configuration, like a
Yep.
real national park? And it's just like there's this is a couple of weeks ago. I was playing a game and had grand intentions of putting down a national park, and wasn't thinking, and kind of forgot what I had intended to do and placed a campus
Oh
where
no.
and it just ruined it. It just, there's nothing you can do to undo it at that point. And every tile around there, I had built the Eiffel Tower. I mean, every tile was just breathtaking or more. And there's just nothing you can do at that point. You just have to give up and feel incredibly frustrated with yourself for having done that.
That's so unfortunate because I've done that to myself as well. And it's like the worst is because, especially in multiplayer, you can't use pins because I use pins like crazy. They're like my little notes on the map because pins in
Yeah.
multiplayer cause instability for God knows why. Um, and so when you make a mistake and you're like, oh, where's that undo button, man? Like, why can't
Yeah.
I just take back that district? There's actually a mod, I believe. One of the community, one of the people in the community made a mod that lets you move your district for a price. And I
That
kind
would
of,
be yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I kind of like, oh, I misplaced that. But yeah,
Yeah. Are there mechanics from older versions of the game? Well, like when did you start playing?
I think my very first game of Civ was with Civilization 4. I didn't play it very much. I might have played like a little bit of like the older like Alpha Centauri and colonization and that kind of era, but I don't remember it very well. The one I
Yeah.
really remember was Civ 4. Because I was an MMO gamer back then. I played a lot of like, Anarchy Online. I dabbled a little bit in World of Warcraft and stuff like that. So I didn't play much of these kind of games. I only really got into them with Civ 5 and Beyond Earth and Civilization 6, that kind of era.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely old mechanics I remember in some of the older games that were pretty fun that I'd like to bring back.
Oh yeah, yeah. I really wanted them to bring back monopolies and corporations, so I'm glad they brought that back.
Yeah. I can't remember if it was Civ 3 or Civ 4. You used to be able to send a builder out and not build a full city, but you could like just place it on a strategic resource and realize that strategic resource. And there's like
Really?
mechanism. Yeah, that was a cool mechanism where, and particularly where you have loyalty to deal with now, like rather than maintaining a city or sending a warrior, excuse me, a settler out to another continent, if there's just like one strategic resource in the Arctic, you could just like place a warrior. I think it was called a colony, like that you could do, and that was a fun mechanic, I thought.
That's actually you touch upon it at a point that I've actually really wanted for this game. Is it would be so nice to be able to work things outside of that range of 3, like because like sometimes there's like like a tobacco or like a a horse tile or something that's like just out of range of your city, and it's like I don't want to settle another city to just get that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that. I would love to see that come back too. That sounds great. I think one of the things though about these games is you at a certain point you do have to kind of like say, okay, enough is enough. I can't add more, because at a certain point the game becomes really huge and complex.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of like making an interesting experience is often about like trimming down the number of things players can do to keep the things they can do really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, from the top of the conversation, this point around, if you steal one of Coupe's builders, you get Coupe's builder's abilities. I mean, there's just a million different mechanics like that you just would never be aware of. Like it's literally impossible to know everything about the game, which is part of what makes it fun, but it is complex.
Absolutely. Like, do you know about the district discount mechanic in this game?
No, maybe, but I don't think so. Tell me.
It's like, have you ever noticed that sometimes when you're going to go build a district, like some of them are cheaper?
Yes.
Yeah. There's no way I can explain that to you, how that works. Like, I know how it works, but I would need a whiteboard and like 3 different colored pens to be able to explain to you how those discounts are calculated.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of, like, of course that's a thing that I hadn't thought about that before, but I have certainly noticed that.
It's one of those things that like the only engagement a player has with that system is like, oh, for some reason this district is cheaper. But then you actually go look into the logic behind it, and it's like dependent upon like districts have 3 different states, whether or not they've been placed, whether they're under construction, whether they've been finished, how many districts have you unlocked, how many have you built on average, and like a couple of other factors like based on how many have you placed. And that's how many discounts you get. And so it's just like this really, really complex web of things that it would be impossible to explain in a normal conversation. But that mechanic is there, and it's a part of the game.
Yeah.
So like I think that kind of feeds into the whole like the complexity of the game. And that's like one mechanic and literally the only thing that does is sometimes make your districts cheaper. And there's so many moments like that in this game. Like unit interactions and, city-state interactions and how tourism works. I mean, tourism's a bit
perfect
simpler.
example, and I'm thinking about it right now, is because going for a religion victory is pretty tedious, I tend not to try, and I therefore end up just not ignoring, but definitely underutilizing faith a lot of the time. And it's just so helpful to build up strong faith in ways that I'd like totally neglect.
Yeah, for sure. Faith is one of those yields that got a lot of love in the game. In the sense that the developers gave it a lot of uses. Yeah. But there's like a big cost to going for faith because it happens right at the start of the game and you're building faith instead of science, or you're building faith instead of gold. But then when you get to the late game and you don't have any faith, you're like, man, I really wish I just had like a couple hundred more.
Yeah. Well, I am going to place my Petra down on the next turn. If I can get it in Adelaide, Adelaide becomes a pretty killer city.
For sure. Do you need gold to be able to maybe buy a builder? You could chop it out with Magnus or something.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because I could send you a little bit of gold if you need another builder.
No, I've got enough gold, I think.
All right, nice.
Yeah, if you're doing that, I'll buy the builder now. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Because I'm just happily sitting here, I've got my 3 cities. I'm making builders. I'm improving tiles. I don't have any grand ambitions like Petra. Dude, I am actually surrounded by barbarians and I'm not okay with it.
Yeah, you've been dealing with them way more than I have. And I've got like pretty good visibility where I am, but still. All right, Petra just got placed. I'm definitely, what else can I can, does it make sense to like, in Adelaide, I'm going to go chop the forest that I'm sending my builder towards. I could buy the other tile and chop that too.
Yeah, that's what I would do to get the Petra sooner.
Yeah.
Because those are hills, so you can always just put a mine on them later.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Generally speaking, like if I see a hill with a forest on it, that's like an easy chop target because like it's, I can always put a production improvement on it later. Flatland, I think lumber mill usually. Which again, uh, is another one of those things where it's like when to chop. That's like someone could write a thesis on when you should chop your tiles versus like improve them, and that just is again another one of those things in this game that's like super complex. That on the surface it's like a really simple choice: do you push this button or not? But because of like the interconnected systems, it becomes like a very complicated and engaging question to have.
Yeah, I just went for the default granary.
Yeah, the granary is it's the backup building. It's like, oh, I don't know what to do. Let's get that
Right.
granary.
There's nothing else. It's the least interesting building that you can go for.
Yeah, for sure. Although it's actually it's and again it's one of those important ones though because I like the I like that they added housing into Civ because it's one of those like economic things that is fun to manage. It's like, okay, how do I get more housing? Because I need to grow to specifically a specific amount of population to put down a district, and there's a whole lot of like interconnected, interesting decisions with that. Do you have like a go-to like opening strategy that you like to go for? Because I'm like 2 scouts into a settler kind of guy. That's like my opener.
So if I'm playing multiplayer, almost without fail.
Oh, I can't hear you. I think you might have tapped off your microphone there. The cable.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. So if I'm playing multiplayer, I will just really truly get to masonry as fast as I can so I can build walls as quickly as I can, because otherwise I'm just going to get annihilated in multiplayer the way that I end up playing. If I'm playing single player, I will usually send out like a scout or two as my first build, but like as soon as I can get to settler, I'll try to get down a second city.
Yeah.
And so when I end up playing, just because I don't have a ton of time, I usually will play on smaller maps. And interesting. So I just cleared it and it didn't really seem to do much for my Petra production. In any event, I will like if when you're playing on smaller maps, the game goes faster, but because the AI starts with more settlers.
Yep.
Like if you don't get down a settler quickly, you can get trapped pretty fast.
Yeah, the map fills up quickly, especially if you play on like small. I like to play on small 6-player maps myself. Tiny feels a little bit too small for me, but I understand it's like a shorter game if you play on that.
Yeah.
But even on like if you play a standard map size, if you just get unlucky with your spawns, you could be boxed in like on turn 20, like if you're playing on deity, and it's really, really. It's kind of like when the game's at its best and at its worst, because in a way I'm like, okay, I've got a really hard challenge to overcome, but also sometimes I walk into a game of Civ and I'm just like, I just want a really easy game today. I want to have lots of land.
Yeah, no, I mean there's times where that is exactly what you want to do. Like there's definitely an art to this game, right? And you can play that out a little bit.
Yeah. So you don't play much single player. You mostly play with your friends, right?
I mostly play multiplayer. I will occasionally play single player. So I had COVID over like the week of Christmas, and there wasn't a lot of campaign stuff happening anyway. I couldn't leave my house even if I wanted to, and I played an embarrassing amount of Civ when it was just like I was at home over the holidays. There's nothing else for me to do.
Hey, this is a safe place for Civ players, okay? There's nothing embarrassing about enjoying that game, okay?
That's what I needed to hear.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of opposition to Civ players out there in the world. But yeah, no, I that's exactly the same as me. Like if I was sick, I had COVID. I actually don't remember it might have been 2 weeks ago. And I did the same thing, except because Civ is kind of work, I step away from it a little bit. I did play towards the end of my sickness, but I played a lot of like similar games that aren't Civ.
So if Civ, so if Civ is kind of like work, what is your? I'm gonna lose this scout, I think. what's your like fun game to play?
See, for me, I'm a person who like really values novelty. Like I love new experiences. I will do things that I don't like just because I haven't done them before. Um, I know that sounds insane, but just so like things that like even if I'll be like, I don't really like the idea of, going to a music festival or whatever, I'll just go because I've never done it before.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't have like a game I go to. I have like a pattern where I load up Steam and I start scrolling through and I'm like, I gotta find a game that like I know I'm looking for something that'll scratch that itch, and then I'll usually find like a silly little city builder that was like programmed by one guy who lives in like his mother's basement in Poland, and like this game is barely translated, and I'll like sit there for like 6 hours and play that.
Yeah, that's fun.
I like finding weird games that like I couldn't explain to people why I was playing them. That's just like a really fun thing to me. Because a lot of games, no, don't get me wrong, I also like playing like quote unquote normal games. I like playing things, usually for me, if I'm not playing alone, I like to play whatever the popular thing is that like the people I know are playing. So like if Fortnite is going on, or PlanetSide, or maybe an MMO or something. I think those are kind of like the two things that drive my decision making when it comes to games. Is like, is this game novel and interesting and different, or are my friends playing it?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I'm probably in the same boat there then.
Yeah, for sure. But lately I've been going back to a game called PlanetSide. It's kind of like a MMO FPS game. So you can have like, I don't know what the max number is, but you can have like 1,000 people on one map all playing the same shooter game. And that concept is just like so gripping to me, is that you could have, a massive amount of people all in the one place playing for the same outcome. Because you could do a lot of coordination. You can like be like, okay, guys, I need 10 people to get into this airship. We're going to do a drop on this base. And then you drop on this base. And then the enemy team are like, okay, we need to get our own 10 guys to go stop this drop. That's just like, that whole gameplay loop is super fun.
Yeah.
Do you actually, so aside from politics and video games, do you have things that you do outside of politics? Like, are you into music? Do you play golf, or do you do, anything of that nature?
Lately there's been so little free time that I haven't done much of anything, unfortunately. Uh let's see, I used to play a lot more chess and like that a lot. I mean, just in the realm of semi-social strategy games, it probably falls in the same camp there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm very into history, and U.S. history probably particularly, but history in general. And so I end up, historically reading some of that. The Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals, are the baseball team here, and I'm a big fan of theirs. And so baseball season here just started like a week or two ago, and so watching some of their games, I end up doing a lot of.
Yeah. Well, like you definitely have picked a career path that sort of like intercepts the ability to take part in a huge amount of hobbies. But it's good that you find time for things like Civ, and it's good that you find times for baseball. I've never really been much of like a huge sports fan. I'll go occasionally. Sorry, excuse me. I actually I'm having a grommet in my throat at the moment. Oh God, I've lost my train of thought now. This is the derailment that happens sometimes.
You're talking about sports.
You've picked up a career path that kind of like intercepts your ability to have a huge amount of hobbies. But do you have what did you do, like ELO in chess or anything like that, or do you like study openers, or was it more like a casual social thing?
It was more casual. So St. Louis is the U.S. capital of chess. Something like all five of the best chess players in the U.S. live in St. Louis.
Really?
And it's because the Chess Hall of Fame is here, and there's one guy who has supported a lot of the chess infrastructure here, and there's a whole city block, probably a 15-minute drive from me or something, that is just like all devoted to chess. There's a chess club down there, and so some of that stuff. But I'm on a good day a casual chess player.
Yeah, for sure. No, I wouldn't expect you to be like a super high level chess player, although it would be impressive if you were.
It would be impressive, and I could tell you that I am, but I would be lying.
True. Yeah, that's really cool. I had no idea that like St. Louis was like the chess capital of America. I was because like in my head when I think of like chess in America, I think of like the street guys in like New York or whatever, right? The guys playing
Yeah.
in Central Park, but
Right, like
it's
like from Searching for Bobby Fischer or something like that.
yeah, like the movie chess players, right? The guys sitting around in a park bench hustling people.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really really interesting. Why is St. Louis the chess capital? Is that just serendipity, or is it just like a really
It's
big?
so I mean, there's a one guy who has more or less subsidized a lot of the chess infrastructure here, and is a big chess player himself. And then it's a network effect of there's good players here, and so more good players come here, and there's a good college team here, which means people stick around. It all sort of feeds into itself.
That's really really cool, and probably makes a really good point for why infrastructure is important, right? If you have the infrastructure to have a
Totally.
good team, you will have a good team, right? If you build it, they will come, sort of a thing.
Is that do you know that reference? I would think of that as a very American movie that you just referenced.
I was reading about it recently, and I have forgotten what the reference is, but it's a voiceover at the end of a movie that says that, right?
Yeah, so the movie is Field of Dreams, which is like an iconic baseball movie. Maybe the iconic baseball movie.
Yes. Where I know it from, there was this really silly comedy movie. Oh God, it had Jeff Goldblum in it, and it was about like a meteor crashing to Earth that spawned alien life forms, and they had to kill the alien life form with Head and Shoulders. And I think at a part of that movie, the guy is building a mall, and he says, "If you build it, they will come." But he's like building the mall in a desert, and so that's where I know it from.
Okay.
But so it was.
So it was a Kevin Costner movie that came out in the 80s. Oh man.
Oh yeah, we're at war. Who's in threat? Oh, you are. Here.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Can you buy archers or
I can
units?
I'm gonna get walls up in a turn.
I can. Well, if you can get them up in a turn, I can get. I can throw you money. I've got 300 gold in the bank, by the way. To
I can't. You can't buy gold. You can't buy.
you can buy units though.
Yeah. Let me see what units I can buy. I'll send my horsemen down there at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. Here, I'll send you. Hold on. I will send you 300 gold. Maybe you can get another horseman. You have to like. You know how to do deals, right?
Yeah, I have to accept it.
Yeah. Not a lot of diplomacy happens in your online game, so I had to check.
There's still we'll play as teams sometimes, so there's at least some diplomacy there.
But yeah, it's a Kevin Costner movie about baseball. Field of Dreams.
Yeah, and it's like it's seen as like the ultimate dude cry movie.
So it's like a really like emotional sports movie.
Yeah. Well, it's about baseball, but it's really about a son's relationship with his dad.
Oh, I see. So yeah, no, I can see how that would be like a really sort of quintessential American emotional movie. I've just walked my scout into his death down here in the south.
That's another mechanic I'd like to improve in Sid 7 is for like automated exploration to just not be a death wish.
Yeah, true. That is something I complain about every single game, because when you're exploring with your scout, you get to a point where it's like, okay, I don't want to manage you anymore. And then you're like, go do your own thing. And then it's like, 2 days later, it's like your intern comes in and it's like, I'm sorry, but the copy room is on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, this is not great with Adelaide, but at least I got a wall up.
You should be fine.
I think I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah, if you
only because I could get that wall up so quickly. I bought an archer.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, this might be an opportunity for me to go on the offensive.
I think you should. If they're really deploying all of their troops over here, I think there is an opportunity for you.
Yeah, because I could go man at arms. Hold on. Yeah, let's start sending them in the way that we should. All right, I got horsemen coming and I got man at arms coming. Although I did give you all my gold, so it's going to be hard to maybe upgrade, but I'll figure that out.
I can give you some of it back if you need it, although I am going to buy another horseman. unless you need it.
No, I think defending you is more important than attacking. The attacking can happen a little bit later. We got to make sure you don't lose Adelaide because you've invested so much in the Petra. It's not even finished.
Yeah, the Petra's so close to being finished too, and he's just stepping on that tile, which is keeping me from doing it.
That's. I think that mechanic should stay, but it is very frustrating. I've used it to great effect occasionally. Like if someone's building a wonder that I really want, I'll like declare war at my scout and step on it for a couple of turns.
Just step on it, yeah.
Yeah. Because it really messes with people's build orders when it happens.
Oh man, the Incas have crazy science right now.
What are they on, 78? Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem that we'll have to deal with, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
We'll cross that bridge. I'm going to get the recorded history adjacency, or the plus 100% campus district adjacency. And for Australia, that's a really good card to get.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because you naturally get very high adjacency on your campus.
Exactly. Yeah. All right.
That horseman just took damage.
All right. I do need to finish Petra. It's only 2 turns away. I would really like to finish Petra. You know what I'm going to do is move my builder, my warrior there.
If you do have a chance to send me back like 100 gold, I could get a man at arms right now.
Let me do that. Big deal. Do you need 100 gold?
Yeah, 100 to 200 would be fine.
Okay, I just gave you 100. If you need more, let me know.
Perfect. So now I've got man at arms, 45 combat strength unit. I'll send them over soon. So, I mean, like, at the very least, the AI is replicating your multiplayer experience.
Yes, right. Just immediate war. Correct.
No hesitation, straight in, horsemen all over the place. Did you? Oh, you got your horsemen out. Nice.
Yeah, I don't know about the optics of me being at war with America right now, but here we are.
Maybe I should have taken America out of the leader pool. But I just thought
they were a little too quick to declare that surprise war.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's I think that's the Bull Moose Teddy is. Wait,
I think I think it's Bull Moose Teddy. Ooh, I do get a great campus adjacency bonus here.
I think Bull Moose Teddy can be a little aggressive when you're on his continent. That's unfortunate. Let me re-invite you. This is, you know what? I want to change my answer to the question of what would I change about Civ 7. Better netcode. Okay? Better netcode. That's the thing that I want.
Yeah.
I sent you an invite, so hopefully you get that.
Yeah, I should be back in a second.
Great. Unfortunately,
I don't know why that is, though.
I think it's some of the guys who were working, or not working, sorry, some of the guys who are in the Civ multiplayer competitive scene. I don't know if you watched any of my coverage of like the tournaments or anything like that. Apparently what it is it's like when there's like a little bit of packet loss, that can just cause a desync. So like the further away you are, the worse it is. So when they were all over LAN, they had 0 crashes or issues with their like games.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that might be what's feeding into it. Maybe there's like a little bit of a hiccup on the line between us.
Yeah, all right, I should be back in a second.
Yep, the game says you are joining. But this is like the lobby simulator thing is, you know, that's the quintessential Civ multiplayer experience. Is somebody disconnects and then you have to reload the turn like 4 or 5 times to get them back into the game.
Yeah.
Which is honestly sad because I think that sort of stuff gets in the way of people wanting to experience these games in multiplayer, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the game is designed to be a single player game.
Multiplayer is important and stuff like that, but it's not the main course of the gameplay.
Right.
So you mentioned, I can't remember what your other hobby was I was going to talk about. You said baseball and chess. What was your other, did you say something else? Or
I think I said history was the other one.
History, right. So you said you're particularly interested in like American history. Oh, does that mean you're like really interested in like the Civil War era, or is it like a more broad sort of like from, you know, the 1500s when America was settled? Or is there like an era of American history you're really curious about?
You know, the real answer is all of it. And I find, you know, it helps us, given what my line of work, it helps me understand things a lot better. But I probably am particularly interested in, you know, the first half of the 20th century in U.S. history is just so interesting between Teddy Roosevelt, who is at war with me right now. Then you get World War One into the roaring 20s, into the Depression, the Spanish flu, which I think had been largely forgotten about in U.S. history until sort of recently. And then World War II comes up a lot. My grandfather was a World War II veteran who earned a Purple Heart during World War II for his service on Iwo Jima, and so it carries some personal significance to me also.
For sure,
and that's what I'm named after, and so all of that probably factors in. But if if I were to pick one, I don't know if that counts as one era or multiple, but that's probably the era I'm most interested in.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that, because like that's one of the periods of history that I'm most interested in, especially like that turn of the century to like 1930 period for me is like we go from having like horse-drawn carts to planes in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
You know? And like that to me is insane.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
And like the socioeconomic, the social political landscape changes like almost overnight in some places. And you have like the rise of like movements, the complete overhaul of how people live their lives. Like cities become the focus of humanity, whereas before it was like very rural. And now you have people traveling for work. You have more complex jobs arising, new fuel sources. Like you could sit there and talk about it for days.
Yeah. All right. What do you want to do in the World Congress here?
I would say that let me see. If we give melee units +5 combat strength, my men-at-arms will be able to dumpster America. So that's probably a good one to do. So I'm going to vote in the military advisory. I'm going to vote up on melee. For the other one, I don't think it really matters. I guess you could target me with 50% fewer grievances. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I'm so used to like having to try to predict what the AI does and not negotiate what I have to do for the World Congress. And that's another example of like a game mechanic where there's an interesting puzzle for the player to interact with. You have to try and figure out like what are the AI's motivations? What are they going to vote for? Who do they hate the most? Etc.
Yeah. All right, melee gets strength. No, we lost the other one though.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll live with that.
We can live with that.
The +5 strength is the important one because that changes my my power level of my men-at-arms heading over to America here. God, they've got so many tiles I get pillaged too.
Oh, this is a killer Petra though.
Oh man. Once you get those outback stations, that's going to be an amazing city.
Yeah, this is incredible. Actually, this is an incredible city. Now I'm wondering if we should go on offense here.
Oh, I'm all in. I'm going all in.
All right.
I mean, we can play it safe if you want to, but I think, listen, when the AI declares war on you, that's like a license to completely take their entire empire over. Okay, it's like, you declared war on me, now I get to take all your stuff.
That feels reasonable.
It's the Civ 6 self-defense clause, right? You attacked me, therefore I take all your stuff.
Yeah, I didn't start it, but I am going to finish it.
Yeah, for sure. And like that's a very emotional, visceral reaction that everyone has when they're playing this game, because you read so many stories of people who are like, I wanted to go for like a peaceful culture victory, and then like Japan declared war on me, and so I took over the whole world, which is like the beginning of a supervillain's story. Yeah. Oh my! America actually seems to have lost a settler, and I might be able to grab it from them.
Oh yeah, I was just moving my guy over there. That's yours for the taking.
That's going to be a yoink. Sometimes when I have great people, I don't know what to do with them. And I'm like, I stare at the map with the infinite canvas of possibility, and like the void, it stares back.
Yeah, that'll happen.
So how do you want to approach this attack in America? Are we just going to throw... What?
Where do you... It's hilarious to talk about it that way. Where do you think you can get... Like, do you think you go to Charleston first?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to nab that settler and then see if I can attack Charleston. So are we going to do like a pincer attack and slowly wear them down?
That feels right. They don't have walls up yet, and I've got a catapult coming in a turn.
Do you have access to iron?
Yes, I do.
Because I was going to say, if you have iron, you could maybe look to go for like man-at-arms or something. But if you have horses, you could instead go for more coursers, and then you could run around and pillage all their tiles and like cripple their economy.
That makes sense.
It's entirely up to you, whatever style you want to play. See, now we're getting to the phase of the game where there's like multiple decisions that need to be made per turn, so it's a little bit complicated.
Yeah. It is. Well, I mean, yeah, I've joked about this with the friends I play with before, that it is very difficult to walk and chew gum while you're playing Civ.
And it's because it's a very analytical game, right? It takes all that brain power.
Yeah.
You have to like seriously, what's the word I'm looking for? You have to seriously work on automating it. It's easy for me because it's my literal job, so I feel like I have the advantage now in the conversation because I can just talk while you're like,
because you're used to narrating what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. Now you're in my territory, Ben. Yeah, politics was your home turf earlier, where I was a little bit off kilter.
You've got the advantage now.
That's probably not a
crank out some Man-at-Arms. Yeah,
I say go for it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to. I think I've got time to play out this war.
I'm working on feudalism. I'll have the production card for Man-at-Arms soon. I'm making money so I can purchase more. I really want the settler. The settler is going to be the distraction that like lets America build walls and like tank my war.
New York is not building walls here.
I have to declare war on Hong Kong to take this settler, and I really don't want to do that because I think I have envoys with them. Why would it go there? Why wouldn't it just go somewhere else? That's so disheartening.
That is. I'll do some pillaging in the meantime.
Yeah, it's a good call. I guess I'm just pumping out more Man-at-Arms to send at the enemy. I think that's like the ideal situation for me here. Unfortunately, you're a little bit too far away for me to trade with you because that would make us so much money. I'm having to trade with city-states, and that's an interesting thing that I learned from watching the multiplayer scene. They heavily favor gold to the point where they'll have like a player on their team just make gold to feed the guy going to war. So like he is just like the bank. He makes like 400, 500 gold per turn and then throws it at his teammates so they can like fight wars.
I may not be able to. It'll be close if I can take one of their cities or not, but my production's been pretty good here.
I think the catapult will be key. And the horsemen are probably better off like killing his tiles.
Yeah, just going around and pillaging.
Yeah, because then you could get gold, you can get faith, you can get everything you need. Yeah, I'm looking at my own horsemen attacking that city. That would not be happening for me right now. I lose major defeat, it says.
He's got knights. I've only got horsemen. So.
Ooh. Oh my god, that unit has 60 combat strength? That's terrifying. I'm starting to have doubts, Ben. The beginning of doubt.
Yeah. Like, I think we could pull it off, but it would take a while.
It definitely would. The doubt is creeping in. However, I do think you always make an attempt, you know?
Yeah, we'll give it the old college try.
The old college try. That's a phrase. That's like a distinctly American phrase that I don't fully understand.
I'm not sure I fully understand it either, in fairness.
But I've heard so many people use it in so many different contexts. I almost know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know why effort is like the domain of the college try, but...
It's like, because sometimes I feel like, is it like they're not really trying or they're making an effort? You know what I mean? Like, is it like, is the college try that you're like, you're not going to classes, you're drinking beer, you're doing all the fun things? Or is the college try like you're knuckling down, you're really attempting? Like, I don't know which one that is.
Yeah, that's true. College is, yeah, fair enough.
Because I've never been able to parse that. The good news is, though, I do have a steady stream of Man-at-Arms heading towards America, and maybe I can make something happen here. I see you're at war with Mohenjo-Daro as well. They got a lot of stuff coming for you, man.
Yeah, they haven't made it easy. Yeah, that horseman probably will not survive.
But he will serve his purpose, right? He'll tank a hit for you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't think my catapult's going to do quite enough damage here.
City just a little bit too strong?
It's a little bit too strong.
Ouch. That is one thing that I do still struggle with as a player, is if I run into like a situation where I can't find success, like whether it's attacking a city or... I still get that frustration that makes me want to quit.
Yeah. Well, it's just... Yeah, there's like... War is always a total war in this game.
Yeah, for sure. I think part of it is because, you're playing for fun. My tolerance of frustration is much lower. Whereas if I'm doing
Yeah,
something,
fair.
that
Fair.
like, I know this is meant to be a challenge.
All right, I'll give it another turn or two, but I may need to call it. But this has been incredibly fun.
Yeah, it's been I hope I didn't like dominate the conversation too much at any point, and I hope I
No,
didn't
no,
like
no, 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 not at all.
yeah, because I've never done an interview with like I've been interviewed. I've never interviewed. Well, it's not an interview. It was a conversation, right? But it's kind
Yeah.
of a little bit interviewy. So this was. Do you actually, speaking of, do you have like feedback for me that like, should I have been more well read or?
No, this is terrific.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
Thank you.
I
No,
thought
I
it was great.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
No, I
no, I thought
appreciate
you did a
that.
really good job. Yeah.
No, well, I'm not that I'm fishing for like a praise here. It's just more like,
No, I wouldn't say it. No, I thought it was awesome. It's been a ton of fun for me.
yeah, because the idea of like having someone on who has like something they want to talk about is like really interesting. Because I don't know if you know, but I've done a thing where I occasionally interview just random people from my chat and stuff. And you sort of reaching out and talking about this kind of gave me the idea. Maybe this could be like a thing where you just do co-op Civ and like talk to someone about something they care about. Oh my god, they have so many units in here. I don't think we're winning here, Ben.
Yeah. All right, I think we can call it. I did just take one of their settlers, but I will at least bask in the glory that is my Petra city here.
The Petra City is incredibly impressive. To the point where I guarantee you people are going to ask me for the save file so they can play your position.
Yeah, so this is the best Petra city I've come up with.
Would you like to do like a closing statement type of thing for this conversation? Like, do you want to like shout out your things and
Yeah, no,
put a
that'd be
bow
great.
on it, wrap it up?
Perfect. No, thank you for having me on. This has been incredibly fun. I've enjoyed the conversation. I hope everyone listening has enjoyed the conversation. And if people want to get involved, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. You can learn more about me at samuelsforcongress.com, spelled out FOR. So Samuels, FOR, congress.com. If you want to volunteer, you can go to samuelsforcongress.com/volunteer. And if people want to donate and support the campaign, that is critical. It's how we get our message out there. And it's how we do a lot of the stuff we were talking about earlier on in the conversation to bring a little bit of sanity and decency and normal back to politics, because I think we desperately need it. And so you can do that at samuelsforcongress.com/donate if you're a US citizen. So thank you for having me on. And I've enjoyed this a ton.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And maybe one day, 10, 20 years down the line, maybe we'll do playing Civ with the president. Who knows? Let's see how your career goes. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe we'll stick with congressman for now. But it's been
no. Of all my accomplishments, this Petra City is very high on the list. But we'll also work hard to win a congressional race.
But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation. It was really interesting to engage with somebody who is so well versed in American politics when I have only a casual interest in it. I don't know much about it. And I think a lot of the audience are going to be super happy to have heard you and what you have to say. And I really do hope that you have success in your campaign. But I think that is going to be me signing off this conversation.
No, thanks for having me, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, cheers.